Muslim debaters have a new Dawah script, but it's basically recycled new atheist biblical criticism with an Islamic wrapper. Worst, it ends up being self-defeating once you bring the Quran into the picture. The claim is simple. Deuteronomy 22:28-29 says a rape victim has to marry her rapist. Since Christians believe the God of the Old Testament is the same God revealed in Jesus Christ, this supposedly creates a dilemma. Either the law was morally good when God gave it, which would mean forcing a rape victim to marry her attacker is being morally good, or the law is immoral, which would mean that God gave an immoral command and the Bible can't be trusted as a divine revelation. Either way, Christianity is false. That's the argument. Now, there is a reasonable case from the Hebrew that this passage may not even describe rape at all. But for the sake of argument, let's just grant the hardest reading. Many rabbinic interpreters did in fact treat Deuteronomy 22:28-29 as the law of the rapist rather than the law of the seducer. Even then, the meme version of the argument from this passage is still wrong. Let's start with the text itself. Deuteronomy 22 is a series of legal cases. Earlier in the chapter, verses 25-27 describe the rape of a betrothed woman. The man overpowers her and the penalty is death. Verses 28-29 then describe a different case involving an unbetrothed woman. The offender must pay 50 shekels and permanently loses the right to divorce her. But Deuteronomy isn't inventing a brand new legal system. Throughout the Pentateuch, it repeats and expands earlier laws instead of restating every single detail. The same pattern shows up here. Look at Exodus 22:16-17. It addresses the same basic scenario, but it adds an important rule. If the father refuses the marriage, the offender still has to pay the bride price. In other words, the marriage isn't just automatic. The offender doesn't just get the girl. The family can refuse the marriage, and the 50 shekel penalty still applies. Jewish interpretation confirms this. The rabbis actually discuss these passages together. They distinguish between the seducer in Exodus and the rapist in Deuteronomy, but they still apply the same basic framework. In the Babylonian Talmud, Ketubot 39b, the discussion explicitly says the woman can refuse the marriage. The rabbis then ask how we can know the father can refuse it as well. So even when the Deuteronomy passage is treated as rape, the marriage is not automatic and the victim is not forced into it. Earlier Jewish interpretation says the same thing. In Philo of Alexandria, Special Laws 311, Philo explains that if a man violates a virgin, the father then decides whether the marriage happens. If he refuses, the offender must pay a dowry so she can marry another husband. If the woman has no father, the judges ask the woman herself whether she wants the marriage. Later Jewish law agrees. Maimonides in Mishnah Torah rules that the offender marries the woman only if she and her father consent. If she refuses, the marriage doesn't happen, though the financial penalty still applies. So even under the toughest reading of the passage, the meme version is still wrong. The victim and her family could refuse the marriage, and the offender still had to pay. And there's a reason why the law works that way. In the ancient world, an unmarried woman who lost her virginity could face serious social stigma and economic insecurity. As biblical scholars have pointed out, the law doesn't just reward the offender, it traps him in a lifelong responsibility. He pays a heavy financial penalty, and he permanently loses the right to divorce her. In that cultural context, the law prevents the offender from exploiting the victim and then just walking away. While this may seem strange to our modern ears, an example from King David's family helps us understand the cultural context. David's son Amnon raped his half-sister Tamar. While she begged him not to rape her, afterward she begged Amnon to not send her away. She told Amnon that he was doing more evil than the rape itself. This might seem shocking to us, but her perspective is in step with the law from Deuteronomy. Now it's time for the Uno reverse card. Let's just grant the critics' interpretation completely. Suppose Deuteronomy 22:28-29 really does describe the case that they claim. A man rapes an unbetrothed virgin. Now, picture that exact situation happening in 7th century Arabia. A group of Jews brings the case to Muhammad and asks for judgment. Muhammad turns to Allah for guidance. According to Quran 5:43, the response comes, "Why do they come to you for judgment while they have the Torah, in which is the judgment of Allah?" In other words, the Torah already contains God's ruling. In Sunan Abu Dawud 4449, Muhammad then asks for the Torah scroll. When it is brought to him, he places it on the cushion of honor and says, "I believe in you and in the one who revealed you." This isn't just hypothetical. The same scene happens when Jews bring to him an adultery case, and the Torah is consulted to confirm the ruling of stoning, the very same set of laws being discussed here. Now, picture that same moment with a different case. Muhammad opens the Torah to Deuteronomy 22:28 through 29, and he reads the ruling. If that law is immoral, then the Quran has just directed people to an immoral law, and Muhammad has honored it as revelation. What that means is the supposed Christian dilemma isn't just a Christian problem, it's become an Islamic problem too. The Quran repeatedly describes the Torah as revelation from God, sent down by Allah, given as guidance and light, and a completed source of guidance for the children of Israel. And it even warns people to not believe in part of the book while rejecting the rest. And no, the Quran can't suddenly become the moral filter separating bad ancient laws from good God-revealed ones. The same book allows for wife beating, permits sex with slave women, and discusses marriage and divorce involving girls who haven't even menstruated yet. So the argument completely fails. Even under the hardest reading of the passage, the slogan version of the law is wrong, and once the Quran's own statements about the Torah are taken seriously, the dilemma flips back on the Muslim polemicist. If the Torah's laws are immoral, then why does the Quran call it the judgment of Allah?